tonight we're going to tell you 4 stories,
Stories from different cultures.
each from a different set of memories and experiences. And we would like to start off with mine.
Let me tell you a story. This story begins, as stories often do, more than once. The first beginning takes us to medieval England, to the court of King Avann, and we open to a royal decree. Following stories of men who had died fighting over the inheritances of their soon-to-be wives, it was decided that no woman shall inherit anything ever again. With no inheritances, there would be no more fighting, and there would be no more stories. Or so it would seem, because our story begins for a second time with the birth of a child who, if born male, would inherit the land and the title of Cornwall. If born female, would get nothing. And this child's name was Silence. Their parents devised a plan to secure the inheritance for their family, and when the baby was born, a girl, they announced to the world that it was a boy named Silentius. If this secret was ever found out, they would change the name, adding the female suffix to become Silentia. Although the inheritance would be lost by this point, her integrity would be intact. Silentius is raised isolated and alone in the woods, kept separate from other people, a secret, until they near the cusp of adolescence and begin to wonder, for the first time, why it is they feel different to others, why it is that they, specifically, must be kept alone. And they are told, once they find out their nature, Silence flees from it, running away to join a troupe of travelling minstrels, living a life on the road of telling stories where their nature need never catch up to them. But a life on the road grows tiresome before long, and they eventually return home once more, where they are summoned to the court of King Avann, the same king who had made that decree, to train to become a knight. Once they arrive, the queen falls in love with them, but Silence must reject her advances, firstly because it would be treason, and secondly because their secret would be exposed. The queen, enraged and silver-tongued, commands the king to set Silence on an impossible quest to go out and capture the wizard Merlin, who, at this present moment, is cursed to roam the forest as a goat. A curse breakable only by the trick of a maiden, which Silence, under the guise of a male knight, surely could not succeed. When they return, Merlin alongside them, their secret is exposed to the entire royal congregation. Now, the story as written ends like this. The queen is executed in Silence's place for her treachery. Silence marries the king, becoming Queen Silentia in the queen's place, and the decree remains unchanged, for the world was not yet quite ready to change. But perhaps there is another version of the story, one unwritten, because perhaps Silence may have left, allowing tellers to write what it is that they would, but free to be themselves. I wonder how many more stories start like this, beginning in the gaps between the stories, between the pages, between the lines, in, if you will, the silences. Just keep listening.
So Silence ends the story alone.
I'd like to think so.
Yeah. Do you think that they can be happy?
Well, of course. Being away from people means that verbal communication doesn't matter so much as when you are with other people. And I think when the language hadn't yet been developed for them to describe or justify who they were, to try to do that would have been frustrating, and then away from those pressures and those constraints, they could just run free and be secure in who they were.
So, being alone meant freedom.
Yeah.
I know a story that ends in a similar way. Let me tell you a story. This story begins with the birth of a boy named Coffe. Resented by his mother, he was cursed to have 3 fates, one of which being he would never take a mortal wife. Raised under the wing of his magician uncle Gwydion, Clu grew up lonely, and so Gwydion took pity on the boy, who would never have a companion or an heir, and promised that when the time was right, he would make Clu a wife out of the forest flowers. And so, out from the petals rose Blodeuwedd, and she was just as beautiful as Gwydion had intended. So, without a care for her own desires, Blodeuwedd was thrust into the arms of Clu, and the two married immediately. But soon after the marriage, Clu left Blodeuwedd alone in their castle. And abandoned, she grew lonely and resentful. She hadn't asked to be in this situation, and she was constricted. But one day, she heard the noise of an approaching hunting party from a different kingdom. And so, looking for company, she let the men into the castle to rest. This is where she met Ron. He was the leader of the hunting party, and he fell for Blodeuwedd's beauty immediately. And she began to realize the passion that Gronu had for her, the passion that Clu had for her, could be used, could mean a chance at her freedom. And so she began an affair with Gronu, and the two conspired to murder Clu. But there was an issue. Being of magic descent, Clu couldn't be killed in any normal way. So when he finally returned, Blodeuwedd, under the guise of being a worried wife, terrified that if she should be left alone again and Clu were to die, she would be alone forever. So she asked him, "What is the circumstance in which that will happen?" And he told her. The only way that Clu could be killed was by the hand of a spear that had been crafted on every single day for a year. So when Clu left again, Blodeuwedd brought this news to Gronu. And a year later he returned, throwing the spear into Clu's side as he stood on the riverbed. But he didn't die. Instead, injured, he flew up into the forest as an eagle and hid among the top branches. Gwydion, unable to find Clu, searched in the forest for days, looking for the boy he'd raised, and finally, he recognized Clu's eyes in the face of an eagle. He transformed Clu back into a human, and the two set out to seek their revenge on Blodeuwedd and Gronu. When they found them, Clu murdered Gronu ruthlessly. But Blodeuwedd ran away, and Gwydion, unable to kill and she was destined to live the rest of her life alone in the darkness, where all the other birds would despise her. This ending can be seen in different ways. Although she deeply, deeply feared being alone, she had been returned to nature and maybe found some freedom. So, she was given unwillingly. I think she was made for a purpose, and then when she rejected that, punished. But she wasn't human. It's hard to say. She was made from the forest, but she took a human form. Forest. I know the story about the forest. Let me tell you a story. The story begins in the deep woods of Cohort in northern Franconia. The trees form the shadows of the valleys and the hills. And just past the Kemland spits, about 200 meters south, there are the ruins of an old castle, Burg Wallenwolde. And all that remains of this castle is a stone seat. There was a poor woman from the village of Cohort who often travelled to the woods to collect brushwood. Every morning she would work hard. She would collect as much as she could. And she sat down one day to rest before her long journey home. She was thirsty, but where should she find something to drink? As she packed her bundle onto her back, she noticed behind her a silver chalice filled with wine. Should she drink it? She continued on her path, but a voice from the woods called after her. Drink the wine. So she did. And as she made her way back on the long road to the village, a voice called after her. You've left the best bit behind. Unsure of what to do, she walked towards the church. She went to see the vicar. And it was the vicar who said to her, "Go back again tomorrow. If the chalice is still there, you should take it. The voice clearly wants you to have it." So she did. She returned the next day to the woods, and after another morning of hard work, she returned to the same stone seat. And again, the chalice appeared, and she drank the wine, and she took the chalice with her. And again, she made her way down to the village, and she gave the chalice to the church. Only a few days later, she returned to the woods, and she heard the same voice again. Hättest du den Kelch nicht der Kirche vermacht, hätte ich dich auf der Stelle umgebracht. If you hadn't given the chalice to the church, I would have murdered you on the spot.
But what I don't understand, why did she give the chalice to the church?
I think out of thankfulness for what she'd been given and her love for God.
Thankfulness. I think I know a story that ends with thankfulness and gratitude. Let me tell you a story. In Egypt, in 2015, there was two young kids, Rami and Mahmoud. Both of them, after 2011, after the Egyptian revolution, the Arab Spring, they were playing in the street. No, in the school. They were 15. And they were really bored. They were really bored of the normal theory classes. They have two children, two kids. They wanted to be free. So they ran away. They hid in a building in the school. And this building is a theater. Yeah. It's a theater. They loved it. That's what they did. They were like, wow, what is this? They were hiding there from their teachers so that they don't get a punishment for skipping classes. But the teacher said, okay, here is a script. Read, since you are here. Otherwise, you'll get a punishment. We are short and cast. They read from the script. And they were like, wow, what is this? What is this? Like, this stage is giving us freedom. We love it. We want to be creative, and that's it. This is our place. You were enjoying it. Enjoying it. Few years. 16 years old. 17 years old. Mahmoud and Rami getting awards from the education minister and the prime minister in Egypt. Getting awards, getting money, getting to travel. Perform everywhere. But these two kids, they weren't free. These two child, they weren't free. Because they were born as Egyptians. They were born in Egypt in a very difficult time, where every Egyptian male should serve in the army from 1 to 3 years. Every Egyptian male should go to uni, and after they go to uni and graduate, they have to get a full-time job, get married right away, have kids. And the freedom start to disappear bit by bit. Okay, Rami said, no, I don't accept this shit. Mahmoud said, actually, I'm gonna get the full-time job. I'm just gonna follow everyone. I'm gonna do everything as everyone does. Rami said, no. Rami goes out. Rami goes to work. Take gap year. And everyone was going against him. Family, society, and everyone. But he said, I just wanna be free. I wasn't born free, but I wanna get my freedom. And stage and theater gives me the freedom that I didn't have. I just wanted a bike when I was young, and I couldn't get it because I came from a poor family. He wanted a bike. He was born in a poor neighborhood where everyone was suffering. He wanted to play in the street, but there's civil wars outside. He couldn't do anything about it. He couldn't go outside to play. He wanted a bike, but he couldn't get a bike. Okay, few years. He went to uni. Rami went to uni. And then he was like, I don't like this. I want to be free. I want to travel. He said, okay, I'm going to pause theater for a bit. I'm not going to do theater. And I'm going to go out and work so that I can get my freedom. He thought if he get financially free, he can eat whenever he wants. He can do theater whenever he wants. He can travel whenever he wants. Few years and he applied for the best acting school in Egypt, and he got rejected because it's corrupted in Egypt back at the time, not now. Don't want to get problems. In 2016, and he got rejected. He said he stayed in his room depressed for 6 months. He didn't leave his room, and he said, okay. He didn't leave his room. There is a horrible scene outside. He locked himself in his room. He had suicidal thoughts. All of his family there are outside his room, knocking the door, trying to break in and get him out. And he's thinking about ending his life. And after that, he opens the door and he saw his dad crying. And he said, he promised his dad and he promised himself at the time, I'm not gonna make him cry again until he's happy and proud of me. He goes out here, he searches in Google, what is the best acting school in the world? A list of schools come out. And he applies for all of them. He couldn't speak English at the time. He is just Egyptian, you know, my friend. He speaks like this. So he applied for all of them. He got an offer from one famous drama department. And now it's the time to pay. But he's poor, he can't feed himself. He can go out, he can travel, he can do anything. How come he can pay 100K as an international student? and to be free. He said, I'm gonna do it. He said, I might. He just tried and tried and tried and tried. He's trying to get the money. That's Rami. Remember, Mahmoud got a full-time job and he got married and he has kids. Rami is still trying and trying and trying. He got the offer in his hand. He got a list for all the famous businessmen around the world. And he said, listen, this is me and I want to alone. I want to do business. I want support. Because I think I can do something. Hundreds of businessmen around the world and no one responded to him. In 3 months' time, a businessman came to him with an email and he said, Dear Rami, I would love to meet you. And he met him. And he said, I think you're going to be something great in the future. And I would like you to be my partner. I'll give you the money you want if you sign a contract and be my partner and do business with me. Absolutely, he accepted. He signed a contract and in 3 months' time, he made 150K and he decided to spend them on his course to get acting for his freedom. He was like, you know, like when you're by the beach and you're buried under the sand. He traveled now, but you know, like when you bury your friends under the sand and then all of their bodies are down there and they're trying to get out. They hear noise outside. They want to get out. They want to have freedom. They want to go out like these people, but they were born Egyptians. And he gets his head out by the 150K. But all of his body is still down there. He's trying. There's a lot of other people buried under the sand, but they accept this, my friend. They're not gonna change it, but he's gonna change it. He got his head out. He breathed. He can breathe. He was born with a lot of ties around his body. One of them with the army service that he must do. He cut it. The second one is financial freedom. He temporarily cut it. The third one is education, really bad education back then. He cut it. And there is a lot of knots around his body because he was just born like that. But both of them wanted freedom. He is becoming free. And this is not just, it's not the end of the story. It's just the beginning. Because one day, he's going to be totally free. He's going to do whatever he wants. And he can eat in it whenever he wants now. He will go back and he will free his friend as well. And his people. That's how the story ends. It ends with gratitude, with thankfulness. When he goes back to his house and he finds food on the table, he's so grateful and thankful. He's very thankful. He can go anywhere. He appreciates life more. And this is not the end of the story. This is just the beginning of Rami.
So, do you think of leaving Egypt as like an escape?
I think Egypt was a chapter. That was the end of the chapter. And a beginning for a new chapter.
I like that word. Beginning.
Maybe a beginning is just where you're able to choose to start telling the story.
So what's an ending?
A new beginning. The start of the next story. One where silence isn't broken so much as released, with no pressure to keep running, but the freedom to, if they wish. The fabric of their story rippling behind them in the breeze like something fluid. One others can share and join and tell, now with the words to fill in the gaps. Quiet, still, but growing louder with each new teller. A story once silent, silenced, silence.
The beginning of a story where the grass is green enough to let the roots grow. Where we can lie down among the flowers. Will you hear her again? When she cries, transform me then. I would rather the quiet of the night than the ache of 4 stone walls. They'll shout her villainy to the children, but She'll be soaring above her head in the darkness. She was only playing the game stay blind, and I can see you hiding in the tree line, all eagle-eyed.
It's strange to tell a tale of a place so familiar. This is the forest I get lost in. This is the forest I pick berries in. This is where I walk with my husband, meiner Mama, meiner Tante, meiner Oma. This is where we meet the vicar and where he tells us which path to take. This is where I learn to be thankful, to rejoice in what I've been given, and to thank God. Do the trees remember our names? Do they hold on to our memories?
This is a place where I explode what is freedom. The stages where I explode where to be how to be free. How to love freely without any concerns. How to be free. The word freedom is everything that a free person or free man should reach to. And one day, in this place, I'm gonna have Mahmoud here and tell him thank you. شكرا حبيبي ان انت جيت وعلمتني حاجات كتير. Thank you for helping me. Thank you for being there when I was hungry one day and I called you, my friend, I'm hungry. You come to feed me and to care of me. To be free child.